Barbara Arrowsmith Young was diagnosed in grade 1 as having a mental block. She read and wrote everything backwards, had trouble processing concepts and language. She got lost and was physically uncoordinated. Today she holds a couple of university degrees, one a master's in school psychology. She is the author of a fascinating book filled with inspiring stories about people who changed their brains. Many people. How do you judge whether, I'm assuming that we all have a little bit of some of these. Like I can't find my way downtown half the time, so I'm thinking I have a little spatial issue, but it's not severe.
Yes, I mean, nobody has every cognitive function at the same level, and so we all have things that we know that we aren't good at, and most people, it isn't so severe, and they can do workarounds, they can compensate. Right. I mean, the people that I'm working with, or the individuals, are where there are multiple cognitive functions that are all piling up to really make learning difficult, either learning in school, learning on the job, learning in life.
Sure.
Yes.
What's the difference between someone who cannot program the VCR and somebody who can't do any abstract reasoning?
It's on a continuum. So the one would be, you know, a mild level of difficulty that they can't figure out the steps in a process. At a more severe level, they can't even figure out the steps in a process of cooking. I mean, I've seen people that you know, have it at that level of difficulty. So any kind of process, they get the steps backwards in the wrong order. Things are just very, very confusing for them. Yes,
mechanical reasoning. I'm not handy. Well, some people aren't. I can't put a tinker toy together. But if I had to, I might be able to figure it out. I just don't like doing it. Yes. What's the difference between somebody who is has the deficit, so to speak, or the disorder, the brain disorder?
Yeah, when it gets to
what would happen to them?
The level of a disorder, again, it's like anything mechanical, like, you know, they can't even pick up a screwdriver to fix something. So it would be, again, at a severe level. I had a student once who his dream was to be an architect. He'd wanted to do that since he was 11. I think he was about 23 when I first saw him.
Right.
And in his case, I mean, his mechanical reasoning wasn't bad. He was at the 50th percentile, which is average. But to be an architect, you need to be at the 98th or 99th percentile. So I created actually the exercise for him. And he's now an architect, and I think he's been an architect for 14 years. So we brought his mechanical reasoning up to the 99th percentile, which allowed him to move into a field of study that he wanted. So in a sense, I also work with people not just where there's deficit, but where there's an area that is going to limit them from realizing a dream that they have. Right. To, you know, be able to move forward.
And you don't want a pathologist working in your lab who can't recognize objects, who can't tell the difference between a stomach and a lung.
Absolutely.
For instance, what's that called?
There's an area of what I call object recognition, and this is if you're good here, you can close your eyes and conjure up an image of a cat. And you can see the cat, you know, with its ears, the color of the fur. You can see it in glorious detail. Somebody that has a problem here either might just get the image of the cat, like just the outline, or some people say, I just see the back of my eyelids. They conjure up no image. So they can't hold the look of something, so they won't be able to navigate using landmarks. But in the case of the pathologist, and this was a real case, where, you know, this person was diligent. They didn't realize they had this difficulty. They were studying breast tissue. It was somebody that had cancer. They'd gone through chemotherapy, they'd gone through radiation, and it was to look to see was the cancer in remission. And this pathologist looked really, really carefully and was just about to sign off, yes, the person is in remission, when his supervisor came by and said, you know, didn't you see these cells up here at the top of the slide? This is cancer. And he really had not seen that because he hadn't held the look of what those cells looked like to match it up to what he was seeing. And at that point, again, he realized this was somebody's life at stake. Yes. And he stepped out of his residency program, he worked on that cognitive area, and he won't make that mistake again. But there's lots and lots of examples. I had a butcher once who walked through the door, and I did assess him, but I almost didn't have to, because as soon as I looked at him, he had his left hand was all bandaged, and he had the kinesthetic problem. So imagine using a sharp knife in your left hand and not, or right hand, and not knowing where your left hand is. He was cutting himself all the time. And so we critically had to work on that area,
Right.
and now he doesn't cut himself. I had somebody that had that problem and was on the an equestrian team. And how do you control a horse? It's through pressure, like applying pressure gently to the horse's flanks. Well, she would over-apply or under-apply the pressure, and the horse would not obey her commands. And again, we addressed that problem.
I see.
So, I mean, one parent said to me, school is just a metaphor for life. I mean, yes, these problems affect a child in school, but they affect them throughout their life because we carry our brain with us everywhere.
And it's complex, as you know so well, but a hodgepodge of thoughts, for instance, ping pong brain. Can't focus on anything, can't concentrate. I clean the house. I start in the bathroom and then I do the sink and then I go to the other room, then I get bored, then I'm upstairs, then I'm in my closet fooling around with my shoes. What's going on there?
Often that can
be... At a severe level.
At a severe level, often that's a prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of the brain that allows you to plan, to organize, to structure, to set kind of a task for yourself.
Right.
And not get distracted, because there are always extraneous stimuli and distractions as we're trying to do something. But this is the area that allows you to focus and keep true to the goal as you're working towards something rather than getting pulled off task. And as we work on that cognitive function, we see the whole ability to regulate attention shifts.
When you say work on it, example, how you work on it, you say exercises like...
We have a range, so there's very specific exercises for each of these areas. So for the one that I had trouble with the reasoning, I've now developed a whole set of clocks exercises right up to a 10-handed clock. And again, it's not about telling time, it's about processing very intricate relationships. For the child that has problems recognizing symbols, like that then means they can't learn how to read or how to spell, we have a computer program with I think 44 languages built in, from Telugu, Tamil, Sinhalese, Burmese, because I don't want the child to use compensations. Like any activity, we try to pull out the compensation. So we don't want them to put sound to the letters, we don't want them to put meaning. I want to stimulate a part of the brain back here that registers and retains visual symbol patterns.
Okay, so reading is like breathing for most of us, but not for many.
No, I work with a lot of students that struggle with reading because the parts of the brain that are related to either remembering the look of the word. So if you're good here, you can think of the word cat, you can close your eyes and actually see the word cat projected on a blackboard. These children can't hold the symbols. Or the child that can't learn the phonetic process. They can't match CH to ch and remember it as a set of
yeah,
symbols.
there was a woman in the book, Tanya, I think, she can't say table, but she conquers Chekhov.
Yes.
You think, what?
Yes, and it is that complex where you can have some capacities that are working very well and others that aren't. And that's why often these children are confusing when they present.
Sure. And they're being set up for being bullied. Of course they are, because not their fault.
No, and sadly, I mean, one of the things that did break my heart when I wrote the book, and we did a lot of interviews and talking to these children, and there's still such stigma associated and such shame associated with having a learning disability. And I really believe if we recognize that we can change the brain and these children don't have to live with these learning problems throughout their life, there won't be a stigma associated. It's just like, you know, if you are a diabetic and you need insulin, well, you have a cognitive weakness, you need to do some exercises and that will change.
Sure.
And I believe then there doesn't have to be shame or stigma.
Instead of saying things like, I'm not good at remembering things, well, the truth is you probably are. You just have a space in your brain that isn't working all that well. Maybe so, maybe not. Fascinating book.
Thank you.
I couldn't put it down, I must say. And you have Arrowsmith schools here in Vancouver, on the island.
Yes, there are schools here, and interestingly, there are 27 families that have moved from Australia that are now here in Vancouver going. So they've moved halfway around the world to access this program. So there are schools here, they're called Eaton Arrowsmith schools that offer the program.
Congratulations, fascinating work you do.
Thank
you. The
you.
Woman Who Changed Her Brain and Other Inspiring Stories of Pioneering Brain Transformation, Barbara Arrowsmith Young, my guest. And remember, you can catch our conversations on YouTube or follow me on Twitter at Fanny Kiefer. There will be many more pioneering guests to come. Thanks for watching Shaw TV and being with me today.